Hey, it's Sam here. Thank you for coming to this bonus page today. And I'm excited today to show you Webinar Geo in action. It's a new webinar software that's coming out, and it does webinar replays, evergreen webinars, it does recorded webinars. It'll do anything to do with webinars, basically. This software is a very complete solution for running live webinars. They've done a similar thing to what we did with Run a Webinar, where they've basically created this on Amazon, I believe, and they've used similar technology in creating this. They're a bit further down the track though. They've been building this now for a long period of time, and for them it's finally going live. Now the price of Webinar Geo is more expensive. When Run a Webinar launched, for example, when we launched that product, if you saw that, it was closer to $37 to $67. This software is about $297 yearly. However, because of the additional features, it's definitely worth taking a look at, and you'll see the differences in the software. You also see how this compares and stacks up to GoToWebinar, and it is a very viable and from what I've seen so far, a very cool webinar solution. There's a lot in Webinar Geo that we're actually looking to add into Run a Webinar in future, but it is going to take a lot of time, and they've obviously taken a significant amount of time in order to create Webinar Geo. So this is Webinar Geo right here. When you compare $297 per year, it is a lot of money, but webinars are a very useful software to have. You probably have seen webinars in my business and other people's businesses being run on a frequent basis. It's a great way to connect with your audience. It's a great way to train your audience, create content as well, and it's also a great way to sell. There's a lot of people that make a significant amount of money selling through GoToWebinar. For example, GoToWebinar is a multi-million-dollar, if not billion-dollar company. It's very big, and they've got a lot of companies that pay them $299 per month for 1,000 webinars on 1,000 attendees on their webinars. Now, there's no limits to Webinar Geo. And compared to this price tag, $297 yearly is not bad. I mean, you run one webinar, you sell some products on there, or even if you consult to a business, the charges are probably going to be a lot less in doing that than they will be through GoToWebinar. So with that said, let's go through the software and take a look at what it does. So first of all, when you get in here, you're going to see your past webinars are listed here. Your new webinars are also listed up here. And you've also got the option to play the webinar that you did in the past. You've got the webinar download. You've got the ability to download the webinar, view participants of the webinar. You can copy the webinar link, and you can even, if you want to, edit the webinar, duplicate it for the next time if you want to as well. Now, the first step, if you don't have anything in this, is to choose whether you want to select a new live webinar or if you want to select a evergreen or recorded webinar. There's two different styles of webinars that you can run through the system. Now, an evergreen webinar is basically a webinar where people can register at certain times and dates, and you don't have to be there live as the presenter. You can upload a recording, and you can have that recording play when the people arrive live. It streams as a regular webinar, and most people, unless you tell them, won't know it's not live. The advantage of this is that it creates an event, so more people are going to stay for a longer period of time throughout your webinar presentation, and there's a higher chance that they will purchase as a result of watching that event, and they'll do it on the call because they can't watch the video or the event at any later date. It's usually a one-time event, or if it's done multiple times, then it's usually once every few days. So people are probably going to make a decision based on what they see on that live webinar because they don't want to come to another date. They're happy to make a decision on that call. So let's first of all start with the new webinar, and during this process I'm going to show you what it looks like for me as a person who is using the software and someone who would be viewing the webinar. Now, first of all, you're going to see these are the settings in creating your webinar. The difference between this software and others is that all of this is done within one single step. You've also got your settings, and you'll notice here that if you want to capture email addresses as you have people registering for the webinar, you're going to want to go ahead and add an autoresponder. Now, the autoresponders that are included with this, they've got them right here. They include Infusionsoft, Aweber, SendReach, Imnica Mail, MailChimp, iContact, GetResponse, and SendLane. If you have one of these autoresponders, it will work with your autoresponder. It's really easy to do. You just need to click Set Up. It'll go through and authorize your Aweber account as it's doing for me right now. I click Allow Access, and then it gives me a code. I then copy this code in, I paste it into my authorization code, I click Load Lists, and then from there I'm able to go ahead and choose the list that I want to use for this particular connection. I can then put in a friendly name, which might be webinar list. so I can identify what it is. I can add multiple lists if I want to, and I can also choose through the settings panel here the time zone that I want to work in. I can choose the email template, whether it's subscribe, follow up, or reminder. I can also choose the date format. I can choose the clock. I can choose automatic replies, all right? So if I want to predefine some replies that happen on my webinar, I can actually have auto response messages going out during the webinar as people make comments, which can be quite useful. And there's also some colors that are predefined. So when you're running a webinar, if you want to, you can ignore people, you can identify and set different flags so you can go back and review what they needed. Now, if you want to use another autoresponder, or you want to send emails from the system, from another system, like say for example SendGrid or Amazon S3, then you can add in these settings here and send from your server, or you can send emails from your reminder emails when the webinar is beginning or when the replay has become live. You can do this from SendReach, SendGrid, or another system similar to that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to set up new webinar now. Set up new webinar. Okay, so first of all, we name this webinar. So there's a new product that I'm bringing out very soon. It's called Chat Response. So I might put in Chat Response VIP Webinar Workshop. I can then put in a tag if I want to. This tag is designed for you to identify this particular webinar if you have many webinars that have been listed and you want to search for them. I can then choose what to write on my registration page. I can choose what to write on my thank you page, and I can choose what to write on my webinar page. These can be fully customized as you want, and you might say register here to find out about a new Facebook lead technology. It's easy to use and can help you to make money, something like that. And then you might say on the thank you page, thank you for registering. And on the webinar page, you might say the webinar will begin soon. Make sure you are prepared. Then we can put in a time zone, we can put in a date format, we can put in a date format here. Send participants a link to recording. Yes, if we want the webinar replay to go out automatically, we can do that, which is really useful. We can also do a promotion autoplay. Now what that is it adds it to a separate page, and you can then promote that page, and it basically replays it like a webinar. Okay, as an autoplay, it replays it like a webinar. You can also add a promo video to the start of your webinar, and you can also record a promo video if you really want to. Now what we can do is we can go through and we can choose to put in tracking codes into our registration page, our thank you page, our live webinar page. This would be used if you were doing any retargeting over Facebook or anything like that. We can then choose the list that we set up here, so our leads are going to be caught into our autoresponder. We can invite additional presenters to this if we want to. So if we wanted to invite, say myself, for example, I could put in Sam at laptopstartup.com, and I could invite myself as a presenter to this as well. So I could invite my guest, I could invite anyone. You can have many guests on this as well, and you can also email previous participants. So this is really handy because sometimes when a webinar is stopped, for example, or a webinar doesn't finishes, and you need to run it again for people that are a part of that list, now you can select that and it will send emails to those people as well, which is a really handy feature. Final email list. What we can do through here is we can choose a email list. Okay, if we've got an email list, you can see here we've been doing a lot of testing with the software. We can choose a final email list we want to add this to, and if we wanted to categorize that, then we could. Then what we can do is we can choose to add more emails if we wanted to for the software to email. Now what we can do is we can choose a thumbnail. We can actually auto-generate a thumbnail for our webinar. In this case, I could browse if I wanted to as well and upload my own thumbnail. In this case, I'm just going to choose an auto-generated one. Now when the webinar is finished, we can choose some finishing text. The webinar is finished. Thanks for coming. If you want help or support, email me at http://sambeckersupport.com. Thanks. Cool, so we can add something like this. Then we can choose our registration page. Now one of the upgrades that's available, and you'll be able to find out more about that down below, is premium upgrade templates. Okay, you can choose different webinar templates. In this case, what we're going to choose is we're going to choose a standard opt-in template. Okay, dark gray is fine. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go and we can preview our webinar, or we can choose to save our webinar. In this case, I've completed the webinar process. I'm going to save it. And now what it's listed as is listed as my chat response webinar. Now, what I didn't do is I didn't highlight how to actually edit the date, and I didn't choose the date that I needed to run the webinar on. So I'm going to do that. I'll choose the date. It's going to be run tomorrow. It will say 2 p.m. EST. All right, 2 p.m. EST. Actually, what we'll do is we'll do it. What's my time now? 6:20. We'll do it at 6. We'll do it at 6, and we'll do it at 25. So we can look at the webinar time. 6:26 we'll say. Okay, we'll do it today. Then we'll click save. The webinar is going to start very soon. We'll click update, and you can do this for whatever time. And then we've got our webinar starting in 4 hours 5 minutes based on the time zone that's selected. Let me just push this back 4 hours, and I'm going to show you as if we were about to start. So we'll push this back 4 hours now. As you can see, it's really easy to edit these webinars, and we'll see how that looks now. Click update. We've updated our webinar. There we are. We've now got our webinar. It's starting in 4 minutes and 40 seconds. 4 minutes and 40 seconds. We can load our webinar up, and we can load it within this dashboard right here. Now, because I'm logged into Webinar Geo, this is my admin dashboard. This is the admin dashboard that I'm going to be able to use when I'm running my webinar. For anyone else, okay, what they're going to see if I copy this exact same link, and this is the link that you would email out, what they're going to see, let me show you. They're going to see this right here. What I'm doing is I'm actually making 2 screens. I'm on a bigger computer today, and I want to show you what this looks like for a user and what it looks like for the person running the webinar. So this is what it looks like for the person running the webinar. This is what it looks like for the user. So if someone was to add themselves and say Sam at sambacker.com, I'm registering for the webinar. I'm now receiving an email. Okay, first of all, I get a notification email that I've successfully subscribed to the webinar. Also, it gives me the details of when the webinar will start, what time it's going to begin. I can choose to add it to my calendar, and it says that I'll also receive an email reminder. So it's going to send me out an email reminder to remind me about the webinar. Now, in this case, the webinar is about to begin. So thank goodness that I knew this webinar was happening and I was able to register before it started. I can use this link. I can copy it for later. Or what I can do is I can simply cross this, and I can start waiting for the webinar to begin. I can join in on the chat, and I could say, hey, I'm so excited about this. I could submit that message, and then look, over here, my admin dashboard lights up, and I now have this right here, okay? And I can respond to it. So if I wanted to, I could say, yes, how cool is this? And then you can see here Nicole, who's the account that I'm set up on is Nicole's. It's an example account that was set up. And then Nicole has responded to me and said, hey, how cool is this? And you could say, this is really cool. We can also move outside of public private messaging, which we're doing right now. We're in a public conversation, and we can actually, private conversation, we can actually do public broadcasts. Support link is http://sambackersupport.com, for example. So we're able to also send out notifications. Now, one of the things we can also do is we can test that this is working. All right, we're able to test that our webinar is actually working. We can go through and we can test the different components of this, such as, and I'm looking a bit rugged today, we can test the camera, for example. We can choose, no, I don't want to start the webinar, we're just testing things out. We can choose to test out the whiteboard, all right? We can choose to test out the whiteboard, and this is a function which will give you the ability to draw, add text, all of that into this. We can, have a bit of play around with this. We can also share our screen, all right? We can test the screen sharing, see if this is working before our webinar starts. We can choose to share the full screen. We can choose to share like a small portion of the screen. We can choose to share our VIP screen, our admin screen if we want to, which is what I'll probably do now. And we can choose to, share any of other screens as well. Now in this case, what I'm doing is I'm recording through here, and now it's giving me the option to share my screen, okay? So here we are, my screen is being shared. Now, if I was to go ahead and start the webinar early, which is what I'm going to do. And I can also select and make sure that my audio is on. And I can also choose to use Google Hangouts instead of native streaming if I wanted to. I don't want to do that because Google Hangouts is quite slow. So let's go ahead and click start. We're going to start our webinar. Here we go. Now we're starting our webinar. The webinar has begun. It's loading up here. You can see the thumbnail there. And my webinar is now beginning. And I don't know if you can hear that. What it's doing is it's actually, you can hear the audio coming out of my screen.
I don't want to do that because Google Hangouts is quite.
Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mute myself so the sound doesn't come through.
We're starting our webinar.
Okay, so now what we've done is we've gone ahead, we've shared our screen. If we wanted to, we could switch back to our camera and we could share our camera. One of the differences with this software, instead of GoToWebinar, is that one of the things that you notice is that the webcam sharing, you can't do it at the same time as sharing your screen. Right, so that's one thing to be aware of. You can't do the screen share, you can't do the video share, from what I can see, the same time as you're sharing your screen. Now what we're going to do is we'll switch back to our webinar mode. We switched back here. We are watching the video. I've muted my audio. Cool, there it is, it's muted. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen as if I was doing a PowerPoint. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show something on my screen, okay? So what you could do is you could use PowerPoint if you shared your entire screen. I'm not going to do that for this example, but what I will do is I'll show you, say, MindMeister. So now you could do slides, you could do presentation slides, you could show things on the webinar, and it's happening live on the screen. So I could show you logging into MindMeister here, I could test drive this. Everything that I do is now showing up on my screen right here. If I was to enlarge this, for example, you can also see here that it enlarges on the screen, and I would need to widen my screen here in order to do that. So you get the point. This is how the software works. You can edit, and you can customize things as you want. You can record your screen. Right now, it's recording the webinar, and when I'm finished, then what I do is all I need to do, and I can copy the share link here, is click End Webinar. End Webinar. It finishes the webinar. Now what it does is it also gives me a share link. I can post my recording to YouTube, and what I did is I pushed the wrong button. I just pushed the wrong button, but it allows me to go back. I can download my webinar. I can choose to share it, and I can also upload the recording to YouTube if I want to. So now let's go back here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this out, and we're back on my webinar dashboard. We've got my past webinar, which is chat response, and we can play my past webinar and look at it and see if it's ready. There's no processing time. It's immediately available within the dashboard to download, to share, and it also creates as well, which is really quite cool, a webinar replay link here. So I can load up this webinar replay link, I can view this webinar replay link, and this, if my participants want to, they can actually visit this and they can watch this right now. Now it does appear that there is some processing time, because it appears that it is processing right now. I'll just wait for it to play. And I'll go back to here in just a moment. Actually, I'll go back here in a bit and play it through there. I've done it in the last test that I did. It played basically immediately. This was a longer webinar though that I was running, so it may take a bit more time. And you can also review your recordings in here as well. This is where you review your recordings in recordings. Now, if we wanted to, we could add other. We could create another type of webinar campaign. This is a webinar replay campaign, an evergreen campaign. Now I'm not going to go through the webinar process itself is basically exactly the same. You upload a video recording and it will work. All you need to do is set this up, and you need to set a landing page, and it will do the rest for you. So this is an automated webinar right here. So what we can do is we can choose to select a webinar we've run in the past. Really cool. We can choose the webinar we just ran. We can say that I want people to register and view the last webinar we ran. So it's going to be exactly like it's live, because it plays exactly like it did live. Now you cannot do this through GoToWebinar, and the other softwares that are out there that do this evergreen system all run through Google Hangouts and are really slow and delayed. This is the first software that's offered a fast solution for doing evergreen webinars, and it's one of the key features that I really like about this software. Register. Thank you. And you can type in what you want here. Okay, I'm just doing this for an example. I don't want to keep you, I want to show you the features of this, but I don't want to spend time typing everything out. You can do that yourself. Now we can, if we wanted to, add an external video, so it doesn't need to be a recorded webinar. If we wanted to, you could record it with Camtasia and do that there. We name the title. So in this case, I'm using a chat response, so it doesn't matter, it's already pre-populated. We can add a promotional video that will go at the start or on the landing page. We can do an autoplay promo. We can also select what dates we want this to run. So we could run this on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. We could select 9 p.m., 11 p.m. and 7 p.m. are the 3 times that are available. We can also, if we wanted to, run it for an entire week, and we can set the date as to when this starts. We can, if we wanted to, select all, so it's always available every hour or every few hours there's a time that's available. In this case though, we're just going to select a few times that are going to suit our audience. Now we can choose the date format once again. We can choose to have a watch now option. That's that people go to the registration and they're immediately allowed to watch. In this case, we're not going to do that. We're going to click no. We want them to register for a specific event. And we're going to send notifications to them to make sure they come along. Once you're done, click create. It's going to then remind me that I need to tick these. Click create. And then from there, we're done. Okay, we've got our webinar link. People can now go ahead and register for our evergreen webinar here, and they will be able to join our evergreen webinar at the date that it's about to begin. All right, so really cool feature. Now it has my promo video here. I selected that I wanted a promo video. I don't have a promo video, so it's just showed this as a video here. In future, it would have a promo video. Cool, so let's go back here now. And by the way, I'm an admin, so I'm just going to go and show you what it will look like for a user. Let me do that now. So for a user going to this link, they would see this right here. They would show it starting in 1 day, 9 hours. That's the next showing. They would be able to select the date, the time that they want to come along to, their email, and they'll be able to select the date. They can see the promo video here. They can register, and then once I've got my time valid, then it's going to allow me to register, and I'll be able to go through. I get the link, and it's exactly like a live webinar, except the difference is that it's recorded and that I don't need to be there. As the person who recorded the webinar, I don't have to be there running it. Really cool. All right, so that is Webinar Geo. This is what the system does. It's only $297 per year for this webinar system. And if you're looking for a way of doing this for businesses, you're looking for a way of doing it in your own business, or if you want, and what I personally believe is the best feature of this, which is the evergreen webinar system, which I'll probably use as well. This is the only software I've seen that does this quickly. It does it really easily, and it doesn't take long to set these webinars up. As you've seen, it's taken me a few minutes to create these, but the learning time for this software isn't much, and you've also got a way of exporting all your leads out, and you also have the ability to add other different elements into this as well. So I know the guys have worked hard on this software. I've been talking with them for a long period of time. You can create new surveys as well for your customers who go on your webinars. You can create buttons for people to purchase and click on the button to buy. I know they've worked really hard on it. I've been talking with Webinar Geo, the creator of it, Walt Bayless, for a long period of time about this software, and I really like the job they've done with it. It's a good, solid solution. I haven't seen any issues. There's no bugs in the software that I've been able to find after testing it for a long period of time, and it's a very complete webinar solution that you will be really happy with if you're looking to run webinars in your business. So go down below, check out all of the bonuses that are available down below, and I look forward to talking with you again soon. This is Sam Becker. Thanks again for coming to this video, this bonus page, and I look forward to talking with you again soon. See you later.